Welcome back, everybody. Tia here, and in today's episode of SIMP CITY, I am extremely excited to be sharing with you some games from one of my all-time favorite designers and publishers in the industry, and that is Saashi. Saashi is a Japanese designer who grew up with a love of game design. In 2015, he started his own publishing company along with his wife, Takako Takarai, called Saashi and Saashi. Their games really strive to capture kinds of everyday moments, but in unique ways that are blended with some really cool game design elements and beautiful art from Takako. So without rambling on too much about that, because you'll hear it a million times throughout the video, we're just gonna jump into our first game here. And that is a flip and write game called Let's Make a Bus Route. Let's Make a Bus Route is unique versus other roll and write or flip and fill style games. Instead of rolling dice, flipping a card, and everybody drawing on their own personal board, in Let's Make a Bus Route, you're actually creating a central city map that all players share. Based on the card that's drawn, everybody's going to get a unique route, trying to connect certain subway stations, picking up passengers, dropping them off, seeing sites in certain orders to trigger combos, and it's a really straightforward and quick play. But the fact that everybody's working on that central board is so unique to this genre of games. Now, this game is a little bit hard to get a hold of, especially if you live in the US or outside of Japan/Asia, but recently it was re-implemented with Get On Board New York and London. To my knowledge, the only difference is that this version has some new maps for New York and London versus some Japanese cities that come in Let's Make a Bus Route, the original. And the components are quite different. In Let's Make a Bus Route, you have dry erase markers that you're using on a central whiteboard. But in Get On Board, as you can see here, you have these wooden tokens that you're going to be placing out, which may be a little fiddly. I don't know. I haven't played it. I would be worried about bumping over the table because I'm clumsy, but it might not be a problem for other people. Now, there is also a 2-player version of this game called Let's Make a Bus Route, the dice game. I also have not tried this particular version, but I've heard some good things. I think that having Let's Make a Bus Route, which plays up to 5 players, for me is the one that I would want to have and want to keep out of the 3, but you can look into them yourself and see if any or all of them are for you. The next game on this list is the solo game of this series, and that is Coffee Roaster. Now, I am not a big coffee aficionado. I rarely ever drink it. I don't know much about it. Pretty much everything I know about coffee comes from this game. You can tell that Saashi is really passionate about coffee because there are pamphlets in the game, and with each different blend that you try to make as your objective from game to game, it goes into great detail about the process of how coffee is created and what the different elements are. And it really helps you to appreciate the design of the game. So throughout the course of the game, you're going to be building a bag of beans, which you will then be pulling out to create your final cup of coffee. And with each round, you're going to be roasting and upgrading your beans to higher levels, adding in flavors of sweetness and acidity. And again, at the end, pulling out to create that final cup. It's a really unique little bag builder. I know bag building is becoming a little bit more prevalent within solo gaming specifically, but this was one of kind of the OG bag building games. And it has such just a mindful, relaxing aesthetic. Getting into the rules was a little bit tricky at first, but once you play a round or two, it's very, very straightforward. This particular version is the reskin from Stronghold Games. There is an original version published by Saashi and Saashi with Takako's art, which I unfortunately don't have in my collection, but who knows, fingers crossed, maybe someday. And overall, I have to say that as a non-coffee drinker, I absolutely love this game. From my perspective, it seems like it really honors the beauty and the process of creating coffees and that whole other hobby. So I have a newfound appreciation for that because of the awesome design elements in this game and the love and care and connectivity that went into creating it. Next up on the list is one of Saashi's probably most popular games, and that is Remember Our Trip. The flavor of this game is that you're sitting around a table with the other players after a trip that you've just been on, trying to recall what all you saw and create a map of the city. It's very interesting because as you go through, that central board is something that you're constructing all together. And that's the collective memories of everybody saying, a landmark was here, there were some shops here, ooh, I remember there was a park over here. And as you're doing that, you're creating your own board with what you remember having seen on your trip. So as the game goes, it's evolving and you're trying to see who can most closely match the collective memory of everybody. And this will feature obviously some polyomino tiles and some specific scoring objectives and things like that. Overall, I just think that this game is one of the most unique games that I've ever played. I love polyomino games, I love puzzle games, spatial reasoning games, but I've never played a game quite like this. And I think that without the theming and the idea of this remember our trip, I think that it's so unique, but also relatable in the same way, because whether you've been on a specific vacation or not, everybody can think back to a time that they want to remember and hold on to and be able to reminisce about with friends and with people that they love. So this game really does a great job of capturing that in a quirky but functional way in terms of gameplay. And I think that this is a game that just sitting back, it's a lot more of an experience. It really draws you in emotionally to that kind of headspace if you allow it to. If you're the type of person that feels like you've seen everything, you've played everything, nothing surprises you anymore, this is definitely a game that you're going to want to check out. The next game on the list is one that really appealed to me based on the theme, and that is Take the A Chord. So this is a trick-taking game where you are going to be playing different chords as a little jazz collective, improvising and playing melodies, reacting off one another. I think that the theme of this game is really cool. The idea behind it of playing those tricks and seeing what the major chord is, or if there are key changes, really interesting. And having been a musician, having been in that space of being in jazz combos and things like that, it was a really cool idea. Unfortunately, out of all of Saashi's games, this one did fall a little flat for me. I felt for a trick-taking game, it was a little convoluted with keeping track of key changes and starts of players and improvisations. There were a little too many departures from traditional trick taking and realigning which tricks were trump suit and etc. I think if you play this one a lot and really know how it works and know how the scoring works, it can be really cool. And I do think that the theme matches up with the gameplay, but unfortunately in this case, the gameplay does become a little bit convoluted because of that. But if you're looking for something completely unique, if you like the theme, if you like something that's going to be a little quirky and that's going to be totally different from anything you own, this could be one for you to check out. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for people who are just looking for a casual trick-taking game. Next is another classic from Saashi, and that is In Front of the Elevators. This is just a tiny little box card hand management game. In the game, you're going to be collecting cards of your color and placing them out in front of certain elevators, trying to determine priority. And you don't want to be too far away that you don't get into the elevator, but you don't want to be too close because then you'll get less points for entering first. It has a really weird theme, but it really works, especially with the art. And as you can see here, my favorite card, the Lost Child, everybody's waiting to get onto the elevator and the Lost Child is just looking for someone to come along and pick her up, and she's staring directly at you. I just think that the art for that really shows the attention to detail and the love that goes into creating these games with little elements like that. And it's very clear that Saashi and his wife Takako really have a strong, if you will, marriage and partnership in game creation and game design. This is just a really cute, charming one. And again, it's got elements of things that I've never seen before.
Hey everybody, Tia from the future here. What you're witnessing right now is a very naive Tia thinking that while she was on break, the rest of the board gaming world went on break as well. For the Guest Arrive is a somewhat sequel to In Front of the Elevators that was announced earlier in 2022. It actually has been released. In about a week from now, she will be receiving her copy in the mail. So I'm very much looking forward to trying out this sequel, and I can't wait to share that with y'all over on Instagram or maybe in the future on YouTube.
And next we have another small box card game that is a trick-taking game and that is also about coffee. And this is Blend Coffee Lab. Based on reviews and things I had heard about this game, I wasn't sure how much I would enjoy it. I don't mind trick-taking games, but it is a style of game that tends to be kind of overdone these days. And again, not a big coffee drinker. I have Coffee Roaster, love that game. I have other trick-taking games, love those. I have other small box Saashi games like In Front of the Elevators, love that. This game really surprised me in how much I love it. I'd heard that it was very random, but one of the things that I love about this game is that you really have to show a level of restraint and planning because there are 3 rounds, and in each round you're going to be trying to win tricks in order to get coffee flavors, again, of aroma, sweetness, acidity, etc. And you're going to be building your cups of coffee. But only the highest of your 3 blends, light, medium, and dark, will score at the end of the game. So it's not about getting the most points every round between those 3. It's about getting really strong cups of each type of coffee throughout those 3 rounds. There could be a round where you score 0 points and you could still win by a landslide if you plan out your cards and your tricks right. This is such a cool trick-taking game. Again, if you're looking for something different, but that really works, this is one that I would definitely keep an eye out for, and that is Blend Coffee Lab. And last but not least, we have saved my favorite game from Saashi, and it has quickly become one of my all-time favorite games, definitely in my top 10 card/filler games, Photograph, or by the original title, Wind the Film. This is another small box card game, and in this game, you are going to be having a hand of cards representing your camera, snapping shots, and trying to get them in the right orders. So arranging a portfolio, if you will, of these photographs that you're taking. And as you can see in the art here, again, Takako's art, so beautiful. Each suit has a different theme. So red is like a children's birthday party. Yellow is just being out at a coffee shop. Brown references back to the elevators, and you can see the blue card 12 references back to Coffee Roaster and Blend Coffee Lab. So it's cool because there are little references in these cards to some of their other games. This game has some super unique mechanics with not rearranging your hand, trying to get sets, but placing them out and not only within your hand, but then out on the table in certain orders, and the timing is so important. It's a relatively easy to learn game, but again, with a lot of depth of strategy as you're going through and collecting your sets, and you have to be aware of what other people are doing. One of the things that I love is that the backs of the cards show you the range of the card, whether it's 1 through 6 or 7 through 12. So again, it draws you into this player interconnectivity and interaction because you have to be aware of what cards other people have, what they've taken, and whether those are the cards you would need to complete your sets and your rows in the correct orders and within the correct frames of numbers that you can use. And if I could just take a moment to read the inside pamphlet of Wind the Film. The introduction says, after finding your mother's vintage camera inside a dusty box in the attic, you decide to try it out. You head for the streets, and with curiosity as your only guide, you snap picture after picture, documenting your neighborhood as your mother used to do. Choose your subject, wind the film, and snap the shutter at the perfect moment. Which scene will turn out to be your perfect photograph? I think that sentiment really encapsulates the vision of Saashi's games and his design, because these games feel like they transcend just normal board gaming. It's clear that there is a lot of ingenuity in terms of the gameplay, the mechanics that make these games interesting from a technical standpoint, but that there is a lot of artistry and passion and love that goes into creating these games. And that really comes out and is felt during the experience of playing them. With the concept of his games, the backstories, and the way that they're designed, Saashi really invites you not only to play a game, but to have an experience. Whether you're traveling around the city on the bus, reminiscing after the fact about your trip, delving into some very personal, intimate hobbies like coffee, or even just little slices of life like the shared experience of waiting in front of the elevator. I think it's a really beautiful, poetic, and romantic way of capturing what it is to be human, what it is to be alive. And these games allow us to share that with our loved ones. As I've said many times, I cannot highly enough recommend checking out any of these games if you have the opportunity to. And that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving it a thumbs up. It really helps because the more likes on the video, the more the video gets pushed out and the more people that can learn about some of these really amazing games. And if you did enjoy it for yourself, you can also subscribe and hit the bell button down below to hear about any new videos that I'm putting out. Thank you again so much for joining me as always, and I will see you next time. Bye.